if you're not open to listening to what might be considered a controversial point of view, you are settling, because you're settling for your view of the world, the narrative you've been sold, and you don't want to hear anything else. Is music the antidote to meaninglessness? And how do you know when what you are saying is true? Those are the two questions that we're going to attempt to answer today. So, of course, light topics as usual. And these two questions were inspired by a podcast episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, where Joe was interviewing Jordan Peterson, which, of course, we're both big fans of Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. So we had to watch that podcast, and we pulled these questions out of it. And just so you know, too, that podcast posted on January 25th, if you want to go back and find it. But before we get into taking these questions apart, I need to do the formal introduction to the show. So I will say, welcome to Settling's Not an Option. I'm Amanda Stanhope, and I'm here with my amazing friend, Adam Nebbs. And if you enjoy listening to curious-minded people having interesting conversations, then you're in the right place. Our aim is to confront assumptions, challenge expectations, and encourage as many people as we can to stop settling for an unfulfilling life. To support the show, you can follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube. And if you're so inclined, you can find a link to coffee in the description, where you can head on over and donate as little as $1 to us to help us keep the show going. So with all that being said, I'll turn it over to Adam to talk a little bit more about the Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson podcast and the controversy surrounding it.
Cool. Thanks, Amanda. Yes, I thought before we hit those two topics, it'd be good to just talk about the controversy surrounding both the Joe Rogan Experience and also Jordan Peterson as a human being as well.
Well, true.
So, you know, for anyone who doesn't know, the Joe Rogan Experience, I believe, is still the #1 podcast on Spotify. And he came under a lot of fire from singers like Neil Young and Joni Mitchell. I always get those.
Joni. I think it's Joni Mitchell, right?
Yeah. Two musicians that I love, absolutely. And I know, obviously, Joe Rogan loves them as well. But mainly, he came under fire because he'd hosted a couple of guests that had some different opinions about, like, COVID vaccines and what was happening there. Now, you know, obviously, that's been a very heated topic around, you know, anti-vaxxers and things like that. But yeah, it basically got to a point where Neil Young removed all of his music from Spotify after saying, well, you know, either you remove Joe Rogan's podcast or I'm going to take it all out. And he did in the end. So Neil Young removed all of his content. Then his, you know, fellow musician, I suppose, I believe Joni Mitchell removed all of hers or threatened to do so.
I think there were some other ones that did too.
I think so.
I don't remember all of them, but yeah.
So it blew up and caused a lot of issue, and Joe came out and did a quick Instagram video, which I think was really good. I think people should listen to that with an open mind, because I've got some friends that, you know, if I mention Joe Rogan, are like, oh, nah, don't like him. You know, he's very controversial. But I challenge those people, and I'm going to start challenging people more to do this, is have an open mind. So, okay, I'm sure there's been something in the past that's made you dislike Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, whoever, but just listen to what they're saying, because I think Joe Rogan's discussion there about why he's entertaining guests that have different views is reasonable. I think that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't just be towing the line with the same view every time. We need to mix it up and hear from the other side, so that we can have a good dialogue. And that's what Amanda's going to be talking about a bit later with the whole search for truth piece.
Yeah.
And the reason we both chose to talk about the Jordan Peterson interview on the Joe Rogan Experience is because I think both of us absolutely love Jordan Peterson, because he's a spearhead for truth and talking about topics that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
So again, I reckon, you know, if you type in Jordan Peterson into Google, some of the, you know, top hits you'll get will be around the controversy in Canada when he went against their bill. I think it's the C16 bill or something.
Something like that. That sounds right. Yeah.
Bill C16, I think.
Yeah.
Which was, all about the like changing of pronouns, you know, and in a way, something to do with supporting, I think, the trans community. And if they say, call me by this pronoun, you need to legally. So, that was very controversial. But again, he was saying things that people wouldn't like to say, but I think need to be said to have a well-rounded discussion. So I'll conclude it there. I'll throw to Amanda just to get her thoughts on it. But I just want to come out and support and say both of these figures, I support them because I think people just need to be more open to hearing different sides of an argument.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it goes along with the whole premise of the show as far as not settling in life in general. If you're not open to listening to what might be considered a controversial point of view, you are settling because you're settling for your view of the world, the narrative you've been sold, and you don't want to hear anything else. And you don't want to feel uncomfortable because someone else is saying something that maybe you don't agree with. And that is the definition of settling to me. So if you're watching this and you really are committed to not settling, you have to start watching some of these people that maybe you don't agree with. And the one thing I will say I've watched a lot of video footage of Peterson, and I've watched a lot of video footage of Rogan. And one thing I know is that they're very sincere, and they're very, what's the word I'm looking for? They have a lot of integrity. They know that they're not always right, and they will admit when they're wrong, and they will apologize when need be, and they will admit that they have things to learn yet. And so, and you got to understand that the podcast we're talking about is just two people having a conversation, and they're actually really good friends in real life or whatever. So it's two friends having a conversation. It's not, you can't look at it as an authoritative view on the subject. It's like if you're looking to Joe Rogan to be an authority on COVID-19 vaccines, well, that's on you because he's not an authority on COVID-19 vaccines. So anyways, that's about all I had to say for that. We probably want to get to the first question because
we do. Because I can bang on about that other stuff. But
yes, we can talk about that all day, but that's not what we're here for.
Indeed. So I'll hit the first topic, which is music the antidote to meaninglessness? And I loved this part. So we listened to the whole interview. It's about 3 hours long.
4 hours.
4 hours long. It was a long haul.
Yeah.
But some topics I enjoyed more than others. I love this topic. This topic was just beautiful for me. So a bit of context about it before I kind of open it up for conversation. Jordan Peterson just beautifully explains that music is an analog to the structure of the world itself. Now that line for me is beautiful. So just again, an analog to the structure of the world itself. Now at first I was like, what the heck does that mean? But when you really think about it, it's beautiful. And he describes music as multiple patterns layered on top of each other in a harmonious manner. And he's very passionate when he talks about that. And it's so true. I'd never thought of music in that way.
Because I think he almost starts crying in that part, doesn't he?
He does. He cries at one point. And
or tearing up, I should say. It's not like he was,
Yeah, not full on,
Right.
He was just very emotional.
Yeah, very emotional. Yeah.
And it was, I just love that part. And he said in this way, so again, the multiple patterns layered on top of each other in a harmonious manner. He said, in this way, music mirrors the world, which is also made up of patterns. And he describes that people get lifted out of the normality of their existence while witnessing a beautiful music performance. And he says, in that moment, you connect with genuine meaning. Now, he was talking here about nihilists, and how music is just because it's the only artistic form that it's abstract. It's not representing anything. And what he means by that is like a painting, is like, here's a painting of a beautiful church or something like that. So it represents the church. But music is the only art form that kind of is abstract and it doesn't represent anything in itself, And Rogan and him have a really good conversation here. They talk about, will just represent emotions and what people are feeling when they're writing the music, which it will. But again, Peterson's main point here is that it's an artistic form that all artistic forms strive to be, because it is abstract and it's meaning in itself. So I really love this part of the interview because I've always loved music. It energizes me and makes me really, feel that I'm in touch with meaning. People around Hobart would probably think I'm a nut job because I drive around and I just sing. I'm singing songs all the time. I'd have some weird facial expressions. People, when I drive past, would be like, "What are you doing?" But I love it. It's definitely a source that if I'm having a rough morning, just singing and really getting in touch with that music just fills me with energy. And I go to that next part. And I think that'd be true for so many people. It is just a beautiful art form. So my question to Amanda, a really easy one, is do you think that music is one possible answer to solving most of the world's problems, because it does transcend form? So there you go. Just
there you go. That's it. Yeah. Yes. That's my answer. No.
Okay, damn. I should have opened that up more.
Cut. End of show. No. Well, as far as solving problems, I don't know. But what I do know is, if you think that bringing people together can solve all the world's problems, then yes, I believe that music could solve problems. And I guess I'd have to break the music into two different categories, though, because I think there's music that is made simply for commercial reasons and to make money. There's certain artists that they're very commercial and they're just putting out hits that they know are going to get noticed. And that's fine. I don't necessarily think those are the type that are going to change the world. Although now that I say that out loud, they do offer, even those though, they do offer people a chance to play a sense, like we've talked about. And we don't mean play but play like little kids or something, but kind of where it lets you act like a little kid for a while, or just forget all your responsibilities for a little while. So maybe even that kind of music could change the world, now that I'm thinking about it. At first I was going to say no, it wouldn't, but maybe it would, because it offers that opportunity. But the other kind of music, I think, is the music that is made by people because they have no other choice but to make it. If they are not expressing themselves through their music, they will basically go insane. Yeah. Because that's their soul. Basically their soul is going to be sucked out of them if they don't somehow communicate in that way and bring that forward, bring that music forward into the world. And so those are the ones I think really do bring people together too, because that's one of the reasons I absolutely love going to concerts. It's one of my favorite things, because you get all these people in the same room that if you were, because of course I'm mostly into heavy metal, new metal, hard music.
She might look sweet and innocent, but she's not.
But yeah, that's just a facade. I don't know. I don't know where this person came from, but yeah. So these people, if I pass them on the street, these people that are all tattooed up and pierced up and maybe look kind of rough, and maybe people that would be a little intimidating on the street, maybe, we would never talk to each other or interact with each other. But in that setting, you're all there for the same reason. You have something in common. And there is a sense of camaraderie, I think, that you just feel when you're standing next to someone who's screaming out the words to your favorite artist, and you're sitting there screaming them out too. There's just something to that.
Yes.
So that was a long-winded way of saying, yes, I think music can bring people together.
Well said.
Because there's nothing else that can do that.
No.
I guess there's certain movies where you have but even that I don't think does as much, because even thinking about movies, so I'm thinking about people that are super fans of movies, say Star Wars is the first one that comes to mind, where you have a lot of like-minded people that are getting together because they all love Star Wars, but they all love different aspects of it. So even when in that, you could have two people that one loves Darth Vader and one loves Luke Skywalker. And so, there could even be some divide even within that group.
Mm.
Where when you're, and I guess you could have that with music too, but generally speaking, if you love some song or some group and someone else does too, I mean, you're instantly bonded. I think.
Yeah,
And
it's
and there's not
interesting.
really anything else like that. Can you think of anything else that can bond people like
No,
that? Yeah.
no. Well, there's a lot you said there that's really interesting. So I want to hit on a couple of the
Okay.
points.
Okay.
Yeah. So in terms of movies, so I can think of distinct moments, and I know everyone would have felt this. Distinct moments where I'd watched a movie and I just felt so excited, and I was just
Yeah.
pumped, and it just was a feeling that I only get rarely in movies. One of them, and it's because I'm a nerd, was the first Avengers movie. Oh
Okay.
man, I was so G'd up for that. And it was just so good. Like it just exceeded all my expectations and
Yeah.
just I loved it. I was like, yes. And obviously the world loved it and it's done incredibly well as a
And I've
franchise.
never seen it, so
I know, I can't believe it.
here we go again.
You're gonna have to add that to the list.
The people who haven't watched the show know that I have not watched any movies.
No,
So,
no, but it's okay.
it's okay.
It's like there's a lot of movies out there.
I know.
There's a lot of content to consume. But I think to your point, like I think music it's more interactive, right? Because I
Yeah.
think in the cinema, right, watching Avengers, I was really G'd up, but like we're in a movie and I can't, like I guess if I was at home on the couch, I could be like, yeah, this is such an awesome scene and get excited with people. But I mean, I think there's almost an unwritten rule with movies, which is like
True.
shut up and just watch the movie,
True.
like you're not interacting. But I just think about a music concerts, to your point about, can it solve the world? Can it bring people together to solve the world's problems? Like that's the part that I was thinking about when I asked that question, because it does override a lot of the other divides that we create. Man,
Yes,
women,
it does. Yeah.
religiosity, different classes of people, different tastes in other areas. It supersedes all that.
Yeah, it does.
And you're just there enjoying the music as a collective. And another thing too is you're all singing at the top of your lungs, because usually at a concert, for example, it's so goddamn loud, and you can be goofy. Like there's no one sitting next to you, say if you're at a Tool concert or something, and you're screaming at the top of your lungs. No one coming over saying, oh, can you please not sing? Like, you can be a bad singer. You can dance like an idiot. You can you just feel the music how you want to feel it. The person next to you will as well, and you just immerse yourself in it. And it does. I think that's the part that he's hit on so well. Is it does transcend. It does transcend the normality of normal life and give meaning to you for that time.
Yeah,
you're feeling the music with others, so you feel connected to others, probably in ways that you haven't before. And it's nice to feel meaning. I think that's why he tears up, because there's just not a lot of times in life where we touch true meaning. Like we're running for meaning every single day, but music is like, it's just such a beautiful art form that you just touch it, Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and I think it's also the other thing I just was thinking is what makes it different from, say, a movie is that, and again, this is not true of all music, but the music I would think of as moving me, you are hearing and seeing a performance from the people who created it. Like the people who created the music are the ones who are bringing it to you, where in a movie that's different, because you got a writer, you got a producer, you got a director, you got actors, like you got all these different levels. Like the actor did not create that character. So that is not the same. It's not the same level of connection where you have a direct connection with these people that put their heart and soul into creating this. And I think maybe that's really why music touches people in such a different way than anything else, because it's a direct connection to someone else. And especially when it's someone that you can relate to, or not even if you can't even relate to them, but you can just really appreciate the talent. And it's not even talent so much, but it's really just a gift of some, I don't know what the right word is. It's more than talent. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Can you think of a better way to say it?
But I think you not having words for it probably is the best example of what it is, right? Because
that's true.
Because it's beyond words. Like that's the whole thing. It's
beyond word, yeah. Because it's
words.
coming through them. It's not even probably them. It's like this energy.
Yeah.
That's coming through them.
I think that's why people loved Freddie Mercury so much.
Yeah, true.
You know,
well, he probably channeled it better than maybe anybody.
He did. It was like he loved music. He was so passionate, and there'll be no one like him on this planet ever again, in my opinion. He's
one of the chances that he took and the chances he pushed other people to take.
Yeah, and that's why this music still, after all this time, all these years after he's dead, you know, people can still connect with it because it's just, you know, it is a gift that he's given to us through music, and it's magical. And that's the thing. Like I asked one of our guests, Melina, this question, and you know, again, it was a really difficult question, so she couldn't answer it, but was around, you know, there's a feeling that I get sometimes with music. Like there's one album, Anima by Tom York, and I love that album. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
It just resonates with me, and I love listening to it. It just connects with me, and I feel, I don't know, it's hard to, again, it's beyond words. Like I just feel like I'm connecting with something, and it transcends everything else. And, you know, I said to Melina, I was like, what causes that to happen? I think she's like, I don't know. Because
she's like, what the hell? I don't know.
Think, yeah, no one really has that answer. I'm really unfair to guess. I'm like, you will answer the biggest questions ever. But that's the thing. I mean, what a beautiful form, you know, where it basically can make people feel that way.
Right.
So I've got another thing, kind of.
Well, sorry. Yeah. There's one other thing that I was gonna also anecdote, I guess, and I don't know. They probably don't do this in Australia. Okay. I don't know. But here, like anytime they play like Journey, Don't Stop Believing.
Oh yeah.
They played at all kinds of sporting events. Everybody knows that song.
Oh yeah, that's a good song.
It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody kno's it. And so that's another thing. There's nothing else like that, where every single person, young, old, everywhere in between, they know that, and they know Sweet Caroline.
Yes, Sweet Caroline. Yeah.
I mean, that's so awesome to me, you know, that you can have something that everybody knows.
Yeah, there are just certain songs like that. Yeah, Journey is a good one. I was singing that in the kitchen the other day. I was murdering that song in the worst possible way, but I didn't care. I was like, I just want to sing this song. It's such a good song.
But now, anyways,
because when I was preparing for this segment, I went pretty deep, man, as I usually do. So I've got a question here, and I want to get your thoughts on it. There is 3 to 4% of the world's population that have something called music anhedonia.
Okay.
Which means they can't enjoy music.
Okay.
So, because I was thinking, right, if this can if this is, what was my question again? It was, is it the antidote to meaninglessness? What about that 3 to 4% of people that can't enjoy music? How do they find meaning?
Well, and I wonder, can they still? I'd be curious to know if they could still feel the rhythm. Or like the bass.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was interesting, like reading up on it, say for deaf people.
Yeah, because that's what I'm thinking of. So I mean, that's completely different, I guess.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like I like the fact again, and that's that inclusivity, is that even deaf people can feel the vibrations and enjoy it and connect with the music. But yeah, I just thought, what an interesting thing, because I just typed into Google, you know, are there people that can't enjoy music, kind of thing? And there is a condition where people can't. But yeah, I mean, I guess they would find their meaning elsewhere, maybe through other art forms.
Yeah, or could they find it? I'm doubtful. I'm just wondering if they could find it by like appreciating that somebody else is appreciating the music, but probably not.
Maybe, yeah.
That might be a bit of a stretch.
It was a question. I thought, I don't have an answer. I didn't think you would either, because I don't know. But it's a big one. But again, it's, you know, I went pretty deep, and I was curious because I thought, wow, I can't believe there's 3 to 4% of the world's population, those poor buggers that cannot enjoy music.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I've got another part that I want to ask you about. So again, going back to Peterson talking about music, he describes it as something that puts you on the border between chaos and order, and that good music is predictable but has a level of unpredictability. So what this made me think of is when I was studying classics at university many years ago, and my lecturer talking about the difference between the Roman gods Apollo and Dionysus. And so these were both gods of music and dance, but Apollo represented rational thinking and order, and Dionysus represented irrationality and chaos. So I was always curious about that. I thought, we've got two gods that kind of represent that. But I'm just wondering, Amanda, why do you think human beings need both order and chaos?
So I will say, no, I will be honest here and know that I had this question ahead of time, or else I don't think I'd be able to give an answer so quickly. But no, I think it's because I think we need order. Well, I think I shouldn't say all, the majority of people probably prefer some kind of order just so that we have some feeling of safety and security. You know, if you're going back to, I even have my Maslow today. So if you're going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you need to feel safe. And so I think that's why we need order, generally speaking. I also think we need order just to live in society and to be able to interact with other people and whatever and get things done. So I think the reason we need order is pretty obvious. But I think the reason that we need, what was it? Not chaos. What did you say it was? Chaos.
Order and chaos.
Chaos. I think the reason we need chaos is because chaos is what makes us grow as people. Because when everything's completely in order and you're just following things along exactly how they're supposed to be, you're not growing at all. You're not being stretched. You're not being challenged or anything. You're just going through the motions of life. You're settling, I guess, to use our wording, where when you don't settle, that's when you're reaching into the chaos. But you don't want to get too far into the chaos either, because you could get lost in the chaos. I think you get lost in order because your brain just shuts off and you're just doing things by routine. And obviously you can get lost in chaos because you can get so overwhelmed and so lost you can get so lost in your own world too, where you don't see what's going on with anything else. So I think it's just finding that happy medium between the two. But yeah, I think that's why we need it, is to continue to grow. And I'll break out a reference from one of our episodes. I don't remember which episode it was, so I don't know if I'll be able to link it. Maybe you can help me remember. But we were talking about charging the battery.
Yes.
Like the collective consciousness. So the collective consciousness is like this, I don't know, this idea that all of us are hooked into this collective consciousness, that some energy field that we all kind of feed off of. And we were talking one time about how maybe the reason we're here is to grow, because when we grow, we're feeding that collective consciousness. So that's what I would think the chaos helps feed the collective consciousness, maybe.
That's good. I like that. That's an awesome thread. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else will follow that thread. So
some people might be like, these two are nuts.
No,
turning off
I don't want to go explain that whole thread again, but you know what I'm talking about.
I like how you explain that, though. That's why we need chaos. You're right, because if we just had order all the time and we just lived our little lives, just really prescribed lives, nothing changes, we wouldn't grow. Because I think that's it. I mean, chaos feels uncomfortable.
Of course.
I was saying to Amanda before the podcast, I've had a little bit of chaos this week, and I don't like it because I do like my order. But certainly, I'm going to grow from this, because if I look at the last however many years of my life, the times of chaos are what really have carved out big changes in my life. So I like that. That sounds good. And
good.
Well done.
Thank you. I'll take a bow.
From a music perspective as well, so because Peterson was talking about, in your music, you want some level of predictability, because when it's all chaos, chaotic, you can't follow it. You're just kind of getting confused. But you don't want something that's just so boring. Like, you want something that has a bit of spice to it. So that's like life, actually, isn't it? That's
It
obviously
is.
where he's talking about the analog to life. You don't want a boring life, but you do want something that's not too erratic. I can remember two bands I listened to,
Okay.
and I did not like them. This was when I was an undergrad at uni, and I had a friend who I think he just sought out bands that were just really just crazy. So anyways, one's called Eins to Zender No Button from Germany.
Okay.
The other one has a terrible name, but it's the name of the band nonetheless. It's Throbbing Gristle.
Throbbing Gristle. Okay.
But just listen to some of their music. That's too chaotic for me. Yes. I can't enjoy it. It's
I know
just
what you're talking
far
about.
too much on that border of chaos. And look, hey, you know, I'm pretty sure both bands are still kicking about and they've got fans. And maybe it appeals to those fans. But again, I just think the reason those two bands for me aren't mainstream, or at least I can't enjoy them, is they're too much on that chaos. So again, as you said, I think you need to fall on that border. If you can get that right, that's what makes good music, whether it's commercial or somebody's put a lot of energy into it. So look, that's all I needed to ask you, Amanda, about that topic. You answered very well. So thank you. You can give it back to me now if you want.
Did we answer the question? I don't know.
Well,
what do you think? Well,
is music the
antidote to me? I mean, you kind of answered it.
I think so. So maybe not for that 3 to 4% of people. So sorry.
There's always going to be some exception.
If there's anyone who listens to our podcast who suffers from music anhedonia, please have a chat to us. Probably a very niche market there. But I think so. Because I think, I think if you look at all the problems of the world right now that we're dealing with the pandemic, the anti-vaxxers versus the vaxxers, or, Russia and Ukraine, I don't know, take your pick. There's plenty of issues where we're all fighting and arguing with each other. But, wouldn't it be nice to have some kind of thing that overrides all that just for a moment, which I think there's been times probably in history where there's been conflict in some form. And music's come into the mix, and it has kind of pulled people out of that chaos. And then they jump back into the chaos because we're human beings and we still want to fight. But I think so. I think Peterson's right there. It is an antidote to meaninglessness. So cool.
Yeah, because what you're saying is the meaninglessness is what causes all the conflict.
Yeah, I think so.
If you address that, you would do away with the conflict.
Yeah, because I think you're right there. That's it. I mean, I think if we sit with our thoughts too long, and this is what can bring out the nihilism in people. I mean, I've certainly had moments where if I just sit there too long, I'll probably arrive at that. But, I think what we're doing every day, the reason why people are, settling in a way or just living these lives, working 9 to 5 and, doing all the things they do, they're trying to find meaning in some way.
Right.
But that's what causes, I think, ego to come into the mix and people, to really ascribe themselves with these views on the world. And you would find meaning in having a disagreement with somebody.
Yeah, of course.
Guess. Yeah. I don't think it's nice meaning though, whereas music is nice meaning. So maybe that's it. It's like, don't pursue those egoic things. Like try and find something that's really beautiful that will bring us together in a good way, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
I don't think you're going to find that with Throbbing Gristle.
No. Not a good name for a band, is it?
Or there's another one, Cannibal Corpse is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. Like, oh gosh, yeah. No, that's a little too much for me. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for the record. All right, so is it my turn?
It's your turn. Right. Go for it.
Okay. So the question that I am bringing to the table is, how do you know when what you are saying is true? And what inspired this question? Well, I think Jordan Peterson actually said that question word for word, maybe, or maybe Rogan did. I think I stole that question. But anyways, Peterson's answer to the question was, we find truth by mutually exploring structures of truth through dialogue in good faith. And like any true Jordan Peterson quote, there is so much in like every word he uses. Like he's very efficient with his words because there's so much meaning behind every single word in a sentence. And so there's so much wisdom in here. So that's why we got to break it down a little bit. So I kind of picked out of that sentence, which I'll repeat because it's a pretty heavy sentence. We find truth by mutually exploring structures of truth through dialogue in good faith. So I kind of picked out 3 keys to finding truth that were stated in that sentence. So the first key is that we have to explore structures of truth. And you might say, well, what is a structure of truth? Well, a structure of truth is just, to me at least, it's just something that you believe either because it was taught to you or you've had a lived experience that made you believe it, or maybe the mass media has, or the culture has told you that truth. So I think that's what a structure of truth is. It's just something that you've come to believe for whatever reason. And so the first thing we have to do, the first key to finding truth, is we have to be brave enough to acknowledge that our truth may not be true. And so this is a real easy answer, or easy question for you too, Adam, is why do you think that it's so hard for people to do that? Why do you think it's so hard for people to admit that their truth may not be true?
Yeah, good question.
Again, a softball question.
Yeah, thank you for going easy on me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think I think we've all been there. It's been a journey I've gone through the past year and a half. I think that we basically identify with our truth. We identify with our opinions or views on the world, which is why, if I say, that painting over there is pink and you say it's green, I could have basically built my whole life around, terrible analogy, but, I based my whole life around, that painting being that way, and all of a sudden it's not just you challenging, my truth, you're challenging me as a person. True, and if I have to, at least for a moment, entertain your view, it completely breaks me apart as a person, and I have to then reassemble myself based on that. Now, I think there's no way forward but to do that, to constantly let somebody pick apart your worldviews, because it's going to enhance them if you listen. I'm not saying it's going to be easy. It's going to hurt probably at times. Yeah. But it is how you enhance yourself. But also, I guess people really, and this is what I've been challenging myself to do, people really shouldn't identify with their truth, because I think as soon as they do that, they risk annihilating themselves. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. I just think, like a couple of debates I had last year, I'd really, identify with my point of view, and I was really quite shaken after those debates. I didn't really care about those points of view, right? Like, I know what you mean about it. Yeah. But I allowed them to become a part of who I was. So I felt like I was under attack. Right. And that's what I think a lot of people face. So I think it's just, you've got to say, okay, it's going to hurt. But that means you're in the uncomfortable space. And how cool is it? Now you get to almost co-design or reimagine or reassemble something that's closer to the truth. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that would be my answer, I think.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I was trying to think here. I lost my train of thought for a second here. But as far as why people find it hard to do, I think you're right that it is because you identify with your beliefs so much. And I guess something that I read once or heard once that I always try to come back to is that other people's opinions or other people's thoughts have absolutely nothing to do with you. Like, even if they're about you, like say somebody thinks I'm a jerk, that really has nothing to do with me. That's more about them than it is about me, because that's based on, so now somebody calls me a jerk and I think I'm a nice person. So then all of a sudden now my truth, if I hold on to that truth, like you said, that's going to shake my whole world, where really it's just that this person has a different truth because of what they've experienced in their life. And maybe the way I act is triggering something that has happened to them before. And so I guess that's more of a helpful tip, I guess, than anything. But for some reason that was coming to my mind.
Yeah, that's good.
Just to keep that in mind. And that, but yeah, I think that identifying Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Okay, it brought me back to the music thought or the music topic. So I think that is the order part. So your truth is the order.
Mm.
And if you never step away from that, you're gonna end up bored at some point.
Yeah.
If you just want to stick with your own truth all the time.
Mm.
So maybe
I think
that's
that's, yeah, I
so
think
that's
that's
how you
true.
find meaning too, is by stepping away from your own truth a little bit.
Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, we don't like being uncomfortable, I don't think.
No, of course not. I
You
mean,
know?
nobody, I mean, some people are more comfortable being uncomfortable than
Mm.
others, but
Yeah. Like, but, I guess it'll be in that the second or the third point you're going to talk about is, having these discussions in good faith,
yeah,
and I couldn't think of a better example of a person that, I can have the conversations with in good faith. And I think that's what Rogan and Peterson are about. He
right.
specifically talks about that, is that he feels comfortable. He knows he's not, Rogan's not playing games with him in that interview
Yeah,
and trying
right,
to sneak an agenda in there. He's
right.
just interested in a dialogue, and that's what Amanda and I do. That's why if Amanda throws throws a view out there that's different to my truth or whatever it is, the first time it happened, it was uncomfortable, but I know it's in good faith. So I
Yeah,
can basically walk away from that and say, okay, cool. Makes me uncomfortable. Let me reflect on it. Okay, now I've upgraded my truth into a better way of living. And
right.
that's a key component. So I won't jump too far ahead.
I was
I'll
gonna
let you.
say, well, that's kind of the
Yeah.
second point, but no, no,
Yeah,
no,
sorry.
that was a great segue because the second key that I picked out of the sentence was that we have to explore mutually. So we have to
Yeah.
explore structures of truth mutually with someone else because you can't find the truth by yourself, which is what we were just kind of ending that that last part of the conversation on. And so I think we have to be humble enough to know that someone else's truth might be true. And that really, when I was thinking about that, that really reminded me of the scientific method, which when scientists go into an experiment or when they're doing research or whatever, they go into it with a hypothesis. And their approach is to prove that hypothesis wrong. Where so many of us, and we see this all the time in media, and I keep saying media, but I don't even just mean media, but I mean just TV, movies, music, well, not music, but I guess when I say media, I don't mean just like news media. I just mean media in general. We see so much of it where it's just the opposite, where people are trying to prove themselves right. Well, and even our algorithms, like you look at Google algorithms or even Instagram, Facebook, whatever, all the algorithms, they're trying to give you things that support what you already believe. So it's
Yeah.
you're constantly reinforcing your own truth. And so it's exactly the opposite of the way that the scientific method would work, where you're trying to disprove your truth. And I think that's what we need to do a little bit more, is try to prove ourselves wrong. And so the
Yes.
big question, here's another big question,
Uh-oh.
is how do you think the world would be impacted if we were able to do that, if we were able to try to prove ourselves wrong?
Hugely, hugely. I was talking to Amanda about another video that she sent me of Peterson, which is it's titled, I love the title. It was something like, Jordan Peterson thinks we need more dangerous men, right?
Yeah.
And you read that and people are like, dangerous men, oh my God, what are you talking about? But like, watch the video. It's a good way to hook you in. But dangerous men are men, and when he says men, I think it's obviously we know people, but
Yeah.
um, dangerous men are the ones that will actually do that. That will say, hey, I know that this is a sacred cow of a subject, that even entertaining that there's something else here for us to talk about is dangerous.
Yeah.
But when people are weak-willed and they're like, no, I won't do that because I'm terrified that of the reprisal or the repercussions of me discussing that. But I just think, that we're so stuck right now, and people always talk about being PC.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know, as Rogan said on that interview, there's sacred cows that even comedians are not allowed to touch, and we know what they are. And you just, because this is a closed subject, we will not discuss it anymore. This is the only truth there. And if you come in and try and even discuss something not concordant with that truth, you are prejudiced.
Right.
And I just think that's so harmful.
It is.
I just, I think, and it's because people are scared. And hey, I'm scared too. There was a topic that we were going to hit today, and it was talking about gender norms and gender fluidity, and the trans community. And I was scared to talk about it. And I'm scared because, again, I don't feel like the world, or at least, the communities, the big communities surrounding us right now, are prepared to talk about things in good faith. It is, if you start to talk about something and steer away from the main narrative of society, you are having a go, and you are prejudiced, and you are trying to, that's all it is. You're discriminating people, and you are being prejudiced. And I just think that's not how the world should be. It was the same with Peterson talking about that Bill C-16 or whatever it was. He wasn't trying to come in and say, hey, and I'm sure people would get fiery about me even entertaining this, but just saying, I don't think he was going in there to say I'm transphobic, and I don't believe that, the trans community have important things to say. He was just saying, let's just consider the other side of what could happen here if we do put this in law and start playing with linguistics and things like that. So I just think the world would be a lot better served if we did that. But, a big step is we need to mutually explore, as you said, and just do it in good faith, to say that I'm not trying to one-up you, you're not trying to one-up me. We are just trying to explore something to enhance that meaning. And again, I think it would, coming back to your analogy, would charge the battery a lot quicker.
Right.
But right now, the main players in the world don't even want to entertain that. So it's tricky, because you've got to convince some big groups and some people that, hey, how about we entertain this idea? And they're closed off. They don't even want to go there. So,
well, of course. Yeah. Well, and like you said, it is scary. And I guess it's hard to want to prove yourself wrong. You know what I mean? Because it just kind of goes, I think it goes again, and it's probably not that way for everyone in all the world, but at least in our culture, like that's just not, we're not taught to prove ourselves wrong. We're really not, if you think about it. And just even if you think of the way that we're graded at school, the way we're evaluated at work, all these things, it's like that's just not a part of our culture, unfortunately.
No.
So maybe we need to learn a little bit from the scientists. But we all need to be a little more scientific.
That was wise. That's a good quote that I'm gonna sit
good
for a while. Thank you.
Good. But because I'm like, I don't know if I'm just like rambling here or not, but I'm glad something hit.
No, it was good.
But really, I've been trying to do that. So since I've been thinking about this, I have been I wouldn't say I've been necessarily trying to prove myself wrong, but I've been trying to I've been trying to approach conversations with more of curiosity than coming into it stating my assumption first. Because a lot of times when you come into a conversation, at least I know I do, more of a confrontational conversation, it seems like you usually come at it from your point of view and the assumption that you've made. And then you're like trying to get the other person to say, almost to prove why your assumption isn't right. Instead of saying, okay, maybe my assumption is wrong. What's really going on here? And I think, does that make any sense?
It does. It's a big concept though. So I'm
like, I don't know if that makes any sense the way that I'm explaining it. But so I'll give an example. So like, So I've had a couple instances with my daughters this week, and now I'm trying to think of one that I actually want to talk about publicly. No, I just want to be careful and be sensitive to them. But it would be, I know there would be one there that'd be a good example. So like, okay. So like my daughter, Emma, my biological daughter, Emma, because I have stepdaughter, Emma, and a biological daughter, Emma. She tends to be one that kind of puts things off, and I tend to not be that way. And then I make the assumption that she's not going to get something done because she's not doing it the way that I would do it, I guess is the point. So I've been trying to address that differently with her, where I will ask her. So like say, like yesterday, she was supposed to sort her laundry. She didn't do it when I thought she should have done it. So I could go into that and go to her and say, why haven't you sorted your laundry yet? You're supposed to sort your laundry, blah, 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 and get in your face about it. But instead, I went to her and asked her what her plan was as far as, what are you thinking? When are you going to do this? And she had a plan and she did it. So it's like she didn't have to do it my way to get it done.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and that's a very simple, maybe silly example.
No, good example. Good example.
But I think that, man, if you could expand that into bigger issues where you address them that way, where like, okay, take your view out of it and how you would do it, and try to find out more about the other person and why they're doing it the way they are.
Yeah.
Because maybe the way they're doing it is a lot better than the way you would do it.
Yes, that's good. I definitely, yeah. I could even say like that was one of the biggest like learnings I had when I was at the bank as a leader, is that I wanted things done my way.
Right.
So again, it would be, why aren't you doing things the way that I've prescribed you to do them? Because that works for me, and you know, I've obviously done well for myself. Ego. But anyways, it's they would have different ways of doing it. So it's like, yeah, as you say, you just ask the question, what is your plan to achieve this thing?
Yeah.
Talk me through it, and you know, as long as it seems feasible, cool, go for it. Right. And parenting is the best example of that, isn't it? Like it is. We parent off, the only reference we've really got for parenting is probably how our parents parented us, what we like, what we didn't like, and what's, you know, what we think is important from our values, I guess. But yeah, we've got to be so careful not to demand that that our kids do things the way that we think so. Another example with my daughter is they bring home their readers every day. Mm-hmm. And for a while there, when she was learning to read, you know, Rose would really struggle some days. She'd just be like, you know, and have no energy. And my dad said to me, he was like, why do you force her to do it each time? Like, just ask her, do you want to read today? Yeah. You know? And I started doing that. And some days she's like, yeah, I want to read. I'm excited. She'd read and she'd blitz through and it'd be great. Other days, I'm really tired, Dad. Okay. Yeah. And you don't do it. And so it stopped making it this really like, oh my God, I have to do it every day. It's because in my mind, I thought, if I don't do the readers with her every day, I'm a bad parent. You know? Right. So it's coming from a good place, but at the same time, it wasn't picking up on what she needed. So I needed to take that step out and say, well, what do you want? Because maybe giving her that space to not do it after school that day meant she had more energy the next day and she learned a lot more. So, yeah.
And you found the truth that way, because you found the truth of that.
Mutually
that's what she needed in order to be energetic about reading and to enjoy it instead of being resentful about it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're going to do more of that.
That's awesome. But no, while you're saying that, I'm like, well, maybe that's how. So my question was, how do you think you could impact the world if you approached it by assuming you're wrong? Well, maybe that's the best way to impact the world, is to do it through our kids. Or if you don't have kids, you probably have someone that you mentor or someone that you have some influence over. Yeah. So that's probably the best way to do it. Right there.
So. Yeah. We're too far, God. We're going to take years to deal with all this crap. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Work with something that is going to be easy.
Right. All right. So then the third key to finding the truth is to, well, we've talked about this a little bit too, but to engage in dialogue in good faith because your intentions in the conversation have to be sincere, and you can't pretend that you're trying to understand someone else's viewpoint when all you're really trying to do is either win an argument or convince them that your truth has to be the only truth. So I guess another way of saying all that is just that you had to leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
So, but when I was writing this, I was thinking about the last conversation that we taped, that we recorded. I'm dating myself here. Yeah, we got the reel going back here. So. But the last episode that we recorded, you were talking about some difficult conversations you had with people, and I think that you used this method, like these three keys, because I think you did acknowledge that your truth was not the only truth. I think that you acknowledged that the other person might have some valid points, and that what they were saying could also be true. But when you're having those conversations, and maybe just you could briefly say what I'm referring to here, but when you're having those conversations, how did you keep your ego in check when you were having those?
It's difficult. Definitely difficult.
I imagine that it was, but you did it somehow.
There's a problem too, right? I think that we've got to acknowledge is when you go into a conversation following these 3 steps, at least at first, I don't know, I'd be keen for your thoughts on this. You go in with a sense of, especially if you've initiated the conversation, you almost go into this discussion with a sense of maybe not superiority, I don't know what the word is, but you're going in feeling like, look at me, I'm the bigger person.
True.
I'm opening this dialogue.
That's a good
to
point.
better our situation. And so as the initiator, you're going in thinking, I've already got a few points on the scoreboard,
So that's the first time you got to check your ego.
Yeah. So you got to check it and say, no, yes, okay, you've initiated it, but nonetheless, just consider it initiated. Stop thinking about you being the initiator, because it may influence your ability to hear the other person. And throughout, these conversations, as I said, will be uncomfortable. They'll be uncomfortable because you'll present your thoughts and your truth. That will then come under the scrutiny of their truth. And it'll be that defining moment, because again, they'll be talking about their truth again, which won't be consistent with yours. Yeah. And then you will feel under threat. So that's where you need to say, it's okay. My ego feels under threat, and that's just normal. That's what it's designed to do. But I now need to take a step out of that, or leave it at the door, as you said, and work with this. Okay, let's entertain it with an open mindset. So, this is what they're saying. And I think when you do that, you can start to really weave together a new truth. But yeah, it's tricky. You have to be really present. I guess it's that presence thing. You cannot allow yourself to drift away. Be present, listen with an open mind, and just acknowledge that you will, if your ego pops up, it's okay. You're not a bad person. You're just a normal person. But you do need to take action. You can't just let yourself settle into feeling under attack, because that you may as well not have that conversation unless you're prepared to be open, I suppose.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, and you can't also, when you're saying that, you also have to go into it not without making the assumption that the other person is there in good faith. Because the other person might not be there in good faith, but you still need to remain in good faith somehow. So that can be very tough to do too. But maybe at that point, the best thing to do is just to leave the just be done with it. It's like, okay, we're not going to find truth. And maybe that's it. Because maybe you do enter some of these difficult conversations with people, maybe someone you're having a problem with for whatever reason. And maybe you find out that you're not going to find the truth together. And that's okay too, I think, because there's some people that you're just not going to be able to come to a mutual truth, because and I don't know that you even have to both come to the same truth, but whatever. But what Peterson was talking about too is he was saying that, because when he's talking about mutually exploring structures of truth, so he was saying, you add something to your conversation from your lived experience, the other person adds something, and then you each kind of give and take a little bit. You're like, okay, I don't like this part of what I said, so I'm going to leave that alone. I like this part of what this person said. That makes sense to me. So let's add that to the truth. And then you just kind of whittle it away until you have something that resembles truth, or as much truth as there can be. Because that's the thing. I don't know if anything can ever be true, because it can always probably be disproven somehow.
Yeah.
But that's the purest.
Yeah.
If you could go through that process, that's the closest you're going to get to truth.
Yes.
If
I think it's a healthy way of looking at it.
Your own perceptions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. As you were chatting, I was thinking about Rogan and Peterson's interview, and just how they practice what they preach. They literally follow these 3 steps.
They really did, yeah.
And I just imagine, if it had gone a different way, a perfect case in point is Peterson knows his stuff. Nonetheless, Rogan's prepared to call him out on some things.
Did like, there's some times, a lot. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like he'll just say, "What do you mean by that?"
Right.
Or if Peterson gets too carried away, probably because when you're with a friend, sometimes you get a little bit excitable. Yeah. I certainly do. And you Amanda's like, "Oh yeah," but it's a case where he'll pull him back. He'll be like, "Okay, stop for a second.
Right.
What are you talking about? Bring it back to what you're talking about." Oh, okay. Now imagine if Peterson would be like, "I can't believe you dare to challenge my point of view.
Yeah, exactly.
This is over, this conversation." No, they don't do that, and they explore some truths mutually, and they come out with a better view, like the music thing.
Yeah.
That's the big thing for me. Is Peterson says it's a non-representational art form, and Rogan says, "What are you talking about? It represents the emotion of the person writing it." Now they sit there and they explore that, and Peterson at the end says, "Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I think so. It does represent emotion." Yeah. So he's, but at the same time, he's still holding that. Truth.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's still holding that it's, it's a different art form to a painting or a picture or something. But still, he's considering, yes, it does represent emotion. He's not getting frustrated about it. He's enhanced his view. He can now walk off, and next time he has that conversation, he'll have a different lens.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I think we just need to get better at that. And that's what I think both of us want from this podcast.
True.
Because, we had a chat, last week, I think it was. Or was it last week? I don't know. Anyways, we had a chat about, what is settling's not an option?
Oh, yeah.
Because one of our guests had asked us, well, what exactly is the meaning or the purpose of this show? And it was like, I don't know. It's changed, actually.
It's changed, yeah.
It started as, how do we help people not settle for a bad job? And that could get really boring after a while. There's only so much you can talk about bad jobs or bad relationships. Again, we've explored that a little bit. But no, it was something that, Amanda and I agreed. This is about, don't settle for the way you view the world. It's exactly concordant with this, the exploration of truth. Sit down in good faith and explore it. That's what we've done over however many episodes now. We're exploring different truths. And I think both of us have come out a lot more informed about it than if we hadn't explored these truths in good faith.
Well, yeah, definitely. But yeah, you're right. And I hadn't thought of it that way. But that really is what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, so well done us.
We're so awesome.
People are like, oh my God, look at these. But no, I think I hadn't realized that until this conversation. We've been doing that.
That's the whole point of having the conversation, because you come out of it with something, a new nugget of wisdom, a new truth that you didn't have before.
Exactly.
So I guess that's a good way to end the show. Is just to encourage everyone to do that, to open up some dialogue in good faith so that you can come out better on the other side of it.
Yeah.
You can do it for selfish reasons. I mean, you do it for that reason, that because you want to come out better on the other side of it.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. So, because that's good for everyone. So
it is.
All right. Do we think we're good to wrap up then?
I think we're good to wrap up. Yeah.
All right. Formal closing to the show. So if you made it this far, we really appreciate you sticking around, and we'd love to hear from you. You can follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube. You can leave us comments on YouTube, like the videos, all that good stuff. You can also reach out to us on LinkedIn We're both on there. That's probably the easiest way to find us. You can jump over to coffee and give as little as $1 to help us keep this thing going. And I think that's it. So we'll just say until next time, cheers to not settling.
It's not selling. Thanks.
Bye.